Have you ever wondered what Royal Caribbean does with all that food that doesn't get eaten? Cruise ships go through a lot of food in order to feed a small city worth of people every week, and this leaves the potential for massive quantities of food waste. Every ship has multiple restaurants, from the buffet to elegant sit down restaurants, and not all the food gets eaten. Once food is put out to a buffet or served at a restaurant, it can't go back to the kitchen, so it's either eaten or thrown away. Now, food waste isn't just a cruise problem, but it's something that's affecting every restaurant, bakery, supermarket, and theme park out there. Thankfully, Royal Caribbean has a pretty strong commitment to responsible management of its foods that it sources and uses on board, and has a built-in plan for minimizing the waste of perishables. In fact, a lot of people often ask me what happens with all that food, figuring that maybe it's thrown overboard to the fishes. But the reality is very different. Over the last couple of years, Royal Caribbean has embarked on a new mission to minimize how much food ends up in the trash. Hey everyone, it's Matt from RoyalCaribbeanBlog.com. Royal Caribbean's commitment goes well beyond the buffet when it comes to food waste. In 2021, Royal Caribbean set out to truly reduce food waste across all the ships with a new program that went beyond just one restaurant. Now, the parent company, Royal Caribbean Group, set a goal of reducing food waste across all of its cruise ships and cruise lines by 50% by 2025. But as early as 2024, Royal Caribbean said it had already reduced food waste by about 33% across its fleet, saving tens of millions of dollars a year and literally tons of food. According to Royal Caribbean's Senior Vice President of Global Food and Beverage, Lincoln D'Souza, quote, "Reducing food waste is the single easiest and most impactful thing every one of us can do to make a positive impact on the planet." And to that point, Royal Caribbean came up with the Win on Waste program. There are 5 main focuses on how the cruise line plans to achieve its goals, and all of them are already in place as they work towards reaching their final goal. Number 1 is developing a proprietary platform to monitor food supply and accurately estimate how much food should be produced, prepped, and ordered on a given day. Number 2, using artificial intelligence to adjust food production in real time. 3, introducing a dedicated onboard food waste role to monitor and train crew members. 4, track guest demand for specific menu items and adjust the menu prep and ordering accordingly. And then lastly, introduce a food waste awareness campaign in the crew dining areas fleet-wide. You've got to remember and put it in perspective that there are thousands of people that go on a cruise ship. As an example, on Icon of the Seas and Star of the Seas, up to 7,600 people go on one sailing. And they're going to need food for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks in between. On these Icon-class ships, there are 23 total kitchens, referred to as galleys on a cruise ship, to serve 27 different restaurants. Leveraging artificial intelligence allows the chefs to better estimate how much food should be produced, prepped, thawed, and ordered on a given day and at any given time. They do this by entering the demographics of passengers on board, where the ship is sailing, and even the weather to come up with the right amount of food and type of cuisine that will fit onto that sailing. And this makes a lot of sense. If you have a lot more Americans, perhaps there's one type of cuisine as opposed to a lot of Brits and so forth. And if it's going to be rainy the entire cruise, perhaps they won't need as much top deck, pool deck food, as opposed to if it is going to be really sunny, well then places like El Loco Fresh might have far greater demand. Data dashboards are reviewed by ship and corporate leaders to inform adjustments and track initiative progress. The purpose of AI serves is to prevent generation of food waste in the first place. Now, some of the changes are less technical, but make logistical sense, such as food procurement. A ship is supplied with all sorts of food for every single sailing, but it needs to be ready for every day of the sailing. Royal Caribbean orders bananas at various stages of ripeness and held separately to ensure perfect ripe bananas are available throughout each sailing. At the buffet, there's been changes to how much food is prepared and how it's served to guests. While there's still the traditional trays of food, many hot items are prepared using small batches and a la minute cooking methods. Plus, cooking or carving stations ensure that proper portion sizes and preserve quality while engaging guests. You'll also see less perishable food displays and decorations at the buffet. When there is food waste, frequently wasted items are noted to inform of future adjustments. Waste datasets are reviewed daily by the food and beverage leaders, and all this helps Royal Caribbean have a better sense of what they actually need versus what they thought they needed. At scale, this is pretty difficult to achieve, but Royal Caribbean is making everything it can in order to make it a reality. With Icon of the Seas, which has, again, those 7,000 passengers plus another 2,000 to 3,000 crew members, equaling 10,000 people that need to have meals every day, it's a tall order. When Icon of the Seas departs Miami to begin a 7-night sailing, it needs more than 130,000 pounds of food on board so that all of its restaurants, bars, and entertainment venues are fully stocked. To not only ensure they have enough food, but also make sure as little is wasted as possible, Royal Caribbean uses this AI system to make it worthwhile. This new AI system is able to better predict exactly how much food, down to the individual ingredients, a vessel will need for a specific sailing. By leveraging AI, Royal Caribbean can tell their chefs and crew on board how much meat, vegetables, and other food they'll need to match the needs of the passengers on that sailing. When Icon of the Seas first started sailing back in 2024, the AI system was able to ensure the ship was utilizing 86% of its food on board. But a fun fact about food waste on Icon is that the ship's water park is actually partially powered by it. The power for the water slides here is generated partially by food waste, trashed cardboard, and bio waste. They can convert it into pellets that, when heated, give off steam that generates power. Now, AI is going to do as good of a job as it possibly can to help reduce food waste, but of course, there'll still be waste and there's going to be trash on any given cruise. Royal Caribbean touts the fact that a lot of its ships, including Symphony of the Seas, is actually a zero landfill ship. This means the ships can deal with their own waste, ranging all the way from recycling to water filtration. Cruise ships like Symphony of the Seas have a designated waste and recycling center. There are separate teams to deal with each incoming recyclable: glass, cardboard, plastic, and metal. And the ship's waste incineration room is manned 24 hours a day by crew members who differentiate glass based on its color: green, brown, and white. It's then sent to be crushed. Now, the ship has an incinerator as well as a compactor for processing plastic waste, and the compactor crushes about 528 gallons of water bottles. Once the ship returns to port, it can then transport plastic, aluminum, paper, and glass for recycling through a third-party vendor. When it comes to actual food waste, well, those food scraps, before it even reaches the buffet, are put into different buckets, which is then put into a big pipe that leads to the ship's hydroprocessor for incineration. Incinerating food waste reduces the volume of leftover food waste and reduces the ship's weight, and thus fuel needed for the ship to go. As for that extra serving of shrimp cocktail you didn't bother eating, well, that food eventually gets sucked into food pulpers, and of course that goes into pipes below deck, and those eventually combined somewhere where they're going to be eventually stored as waste, and then goes into a system called microwave assisted pyrolysis, or MAPS as Royal Caribbean calls it. But the food waste essentially gets dried and created into pellets that can be turned into fuel for the ship, as we just talked about. Ultimately, cruise ships are spending more effort now to be able to reduce the waste that's there. Is there food waste? Sure, there's food waste everywhere. But the bottom line is there's far less food waste today than there were years ago, and Royal Caribbean is not content with where they're at today. They want to continue pushing that with more initiatives to reduce food waste. After all, not only do they want to reduce food waste because it's bad for the environment just to simply waste food, but more importantly, it's also good for their bottom line. The less food wasted, the less money they're spending on food that doesn't get consumed, and that's win-win for everybody. That means you're getting the food you need, they're not wasting money on food they don't need, and the leftovers don't end up, well, as pellets later on. To see how Royal Caribbean can feed 7,600 passengers every day of the cruise, check out our next video, which is really interesting and gives a behind-the-scenes look at how Royal Caribbean is able to source enough food for Icon of the Seas. Thanks for watching. This has been Matt from RoyalCaribbeanBlog.com, and we'll talk again real soon.